Monitor platelet levels and hold the Lovenox and notify the healthcare provider if platelet counts drop below 100,000. Warfarin is an oral anticoagulant that can be used to transition the client from heparin or from low molecular weight heparin. It is monitored primarily through the International Normalized Ratio, or INR. The target INR is 2 to 3. The warfarin dose is started low and titrated based upon the client's INR. It may be continued for 3 to 6 months after a DVT episode. Do you remember the antidote for warfarin? It's vitamin K. Thrombolytic therapy is used to dissolve thrombi in clients who have DVT. It should be given within 5 days of the onset of symptoms, but it is contraindicated postoperatively, during pregnancy or the postpartum period, and after trauma, brain attack, or spinal injury. Streptokinase and TPA are examples of thrombolytics. For all anticoagulants, the major side effect is bleeding. In addition, low molecular weight heparins can cause severe neurologic injury if given to clients undergoing spinal punctures. Streptokinase can induce allergic reactions and could cause hypotension and fever. For clients who cannot take anticoagulants or in whom the risk of pulmonary embolism is very high, there are surgical options. Inferior vena cava interruption with a filter device is used for recurrent DVT, for clients who cannot take anticoagulants, and for those who have pulmonary emboli despite drug therapy. If the filter is ineffective, ligation of the inferior vena cava may be done or external clips applied. Thrombectomy or surgical removal of the thrombus is rarely done. To assess the client who has thrombophlebitis, determine the presence of risk factors such as dehydration, obesity, smoking, oral contraceptive use, pregnancy, trauma, orthopedic or pelvic surgery, and inactivity. Inspect the affected leg for redness along the path of prominent veins. Palpate for warmth, tenderness, and induration or hardness. To detect swelling in the affected leg, measure the circumference of both legs and compare the two. Record serial leg measurements to document changes. Assess for any manifestations of pulmonary emboli, dyspnea, chest pain, tachycardia, or anxiety. A large embolus can cause heart failure, shock, or sudden death. Nursing diagnoses for clients who have thrombophlebitis include acute pain, impaired gas exchange, self-care deficits, anxiety, and ineffective therapeutic regimen management. For clients who are hospitalized with acute thrombophlebitis, elevate the legs to prevent and reduce edema. Apply warm, moist compresses as ordered. Apply compression stockings or use an intermittent compression device as ordered for superficial thrombophlebitis. Do not massage the legs because that could dislodge a thrombus that might then lodge in distant blood vessels, usually in the lungs. Encourage the client to ambulate regularly as soon as permitted. Avoid trauma, invasive procedures, and needle sticks as much as possible. Monitor lab results related to anticoagulant therapy. Know target times and notify the physician of results. While the client is on bed rest, provide good skin care, encourage position changes, and assist with basic needs. Recognize anxiety, answer questions, and educate the client about the condition. Should a thrombus break loose and lodge in a pulmonary artery, the client's symptoms will vary with the extent to which the lung tissue is affected. Small emboli can be silent, meaning that the client has no symptoms at all. When a larger embolus obstructs a blood vessel, the client typically experiences sudden dyspnea, tachycardia, and chest pain. Heart failure and shock result in death for 60% of people who have massive emboli. When you suspect a pulmonary embolism, elevate the head of the client's bed to 45 degrees, administer oxygen, and notify the physician. Clients who have thrombophlebitis are typically discharged on warfarin or low molecular weight heparin. If the client will be taking low molecular weight heparin at home, teach him or another person he selects how to administer the subcutaneous injections. What teaching points would you cover? Teach the clients who have chronic thrombophlebitis and those who are discharged on anticoagulants to wear a medic alert tag if on anticoagulants, avoid trauma that could cause bleeding, use an electric shaver and a soft toothbrush, inform all healthcare providers of anticoagulant therapy. Be aware that many drugs, even aspirin, can affect the action of anticoagulant medication. Ask the physician before taking any additional medications. Understand that eating a lot of foods that are high in vitamin K, like broccoli and spinach, can interfere with anticoagulant action, so be consistent in the amount of vitamin K-rich foods ingested each day. Notify the physician if any spontaneous bleeding or if there is blood in the stools or urine. Keep appointments for periodic blood studies to monitor medication effects. Avoid actions that cause venous stasis, including crossing the legs, sitting or standing still for long periods of time, and wearing garments that interfere with circulation. When teaching injection technique, emphasize that the client rotate injection sites, pinch a fold of subcutaneous tissue, and insert the needle at a 90-degree angle. Tell him not to aspirate, but to apply pressure to the injection site without massaging it. Massaging the site might increase bruising. Okay, now let's look at some clients with thrombophlebitis. We have a pregnant client who has superficial thrombophlebitis and is being treated conservatively. We also have an elderly male client who recently had total hip replacement surgery. He has deep vein thrombosis and is recovering from a pulmonary embolism. We also have an adolescent who has multiple fractures from a motor vehicle accident. She has one leg in traction and is on prophylactic anticoagulant therapy. What risk factors did each of these clients have? The pregnant client, the pregnancy itself. The elderly client, orthopedic surgery. The adolescent, trauma, fractures, and immobilization. Which preventive measures would be appropriate for the adolescent? Exercise the uninjured extremities. Maintain a high fluid intake. Wear a compression stocking or use sequential compression device on the uninjured leg. How might the elderly client's signs and symptoms differ from those of the pregnant client? The elderly client has DVT. His is likely to have venous distension, edema, pain, tenderness when the area is pressed, muscle induration, a deep reddish skin color, and a positive Homan sign. The pregnant client has superficial thrombophlebitis. She most likely has localized warmth, redness, tenderness, and pain. When palpated, the superficial vein will feel like a firm cord. This is called induration. When might each of the anticoagulants be used? Unfractionated heparin is used to prevent new thrombi or extension of existing thrombi. Low molecular weight heparins treat and prevent DVT. Warfarin is used to prevent thrombus formation in high-risk clients. If the elderly client is sent home on low molecular weight heparin, what instructions will he need? He needs to know how to administer the drug deeply into subcutaneous tissue without aspiration. If the elderly client is sent home on warfarin, what instructions will he need? He needs to know the importance of frequent blood tests for INR until dosage level is stabilized, to report bruising or bleeding, to avoid trauma, and to use an electric shaver and a soft toothbrush. He also needs to know that he shouldn't stop taking the drug suddenly or take other drugs without the physician's knowledge. The next topic we'll review is abdominal aortic aneurysm. Aneurysms are dilated sections of the arterial wall, most common in the aorta and in older males. True aneurysms are surrounded by intact vessel walls, and the blood remains within the vascular compartment, as opposed to false aneurysms, where a tear in the inner wall of an artery allows the formation of an extravascular hematoma that enlarges the vessel's diameter. True aneurysms are classified as either fusiform or saccular. Within a fusiform aneurysm, the entire circumference of the vessel is fairly and evenly dilated. A pouch-like section on one side of the vessel characterizes a saccular aneurysm.